So this last section will be fairly short. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. But we were talking about Erikson's ideas of identification, achievement, and now we're going to talk about the ideas of um, James Marcia, who also had some very interesting ideas where he worked on what Erikson had done and built on that. So James Marcia looked at Erikson's stage for this age group, and he noted that within his idea, in Erikson's idea of identity formation, there were two processes. So there was exploration and there was commitment. And exploration, according to Marcia, is actively questioning and weighing various identity alternatives before deciding which beliefs, values, and goals to pursue. So that's exploration. And exploration, again, is actively questioning and weighing various identity alternatives before deciding which values, beliefs, and goals to pursue. And then commitment, which was the other part, was making identity choices and engaging in activities to implement them. So from that, Marcia determined that there's really actually 4 identity statuses that could characterize a person, depending on whether exploration and commitment have or have not occurred. So the first 2 statuses that are listed here, identity achievement and identity diffusion, depends on whether or not exploration and commitment have or have not occurred. So the first one in identity achievement, that's after a period of exploration has happened and it's followed by some kind of commitment. So they have looked at all the options and they've made a plan. They've looked at all of the family's goals and ideas and values. I guess I really needed ideals and values, and have decided which ones of those they agree with and which ones they disagree with. They've looked at all their vocational opportunities and decided which one they want to commit to. So that's identity achievement. In identity diffusion, neither exploration nor commitment has occurred. So they just haven't done anything. And then the next identity on the slide is foreclosure. And in foreclosure, the individual makes a commitment, but they make the commitment without any kind of exploration. So they generally just adopt a choice that follows whatever their family or culture believes. So I think your book gave the example of teenagers looking at their religion, and the particular religion that they used was the Catholic Church. And so one student, one person, one teenager might look at the Catholic religion and actually decide for themselves if that's the religion that they wanted to follow. And that would be part of identity achievement. But in foreclosure, it's my parents and my grandparents and my great grandparents were all Catholic, so by golly, I'm Catholic too. And that's where they haven't done any kind of exploration. They just decide that's what they're going to do. That could also apply in jobs. We don't see it as much here in the United States, but in some cultures, whatever your parents and your grandparents worked at, it's just expected that you will work at it too. And actually, you know, I say that, but here where I live in the county in Oklahoma where I live, we have a big paper mill. It's a Weyerhaeuser mill. You guys may have them in your communities as well, because I know that they're a large corporation. But in those jobs, many of the people do some of that foreclosure. Their dad worked at the mill, he had a good living. Their grandpa worked at the mill, he had a good living. And so they don't really explore other higher education or other careers or job trainings. They just go straight into that job because they'll make a good living and they know that. So that's another example of vocational foreclosure. So it can be in all areas of their life or in particular areas of their life, if that makes sense. And then the last one is moratorium. And in moratorium, they are, bless their hearts, moratorium, they have made no kind of commitment, but they're still actively engaged in exploration. So if you want more examples or explanations for those, your book gives some examples on page 367, and it also has a diagram that's very easy to understand. So that might be a place that you want to review. So how do we come up with these identity formations? Marcia believed that in order for us to study identity development, it had to be translated into something that could be measured, objectively measured. And so in 1964, Marcia came up with the first semi-structured ego identity interview. And that particular version of it assessed 23 domains of identity. And those were in different areas, such as vocational choice, religious beliefs, political beliefs, and that was the first one, but it's really been revamped and modified over the years in some areas. But the interview format still consists of some general questions like, should one believe in God or not? What type of work do you like to do? And then maybe something like, what do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of being married or single? And from these more general questions and also some specific pool of questions that are very specific type questions, individuals can be categorized, excuse me, in each domain. And then given an identity status as well as being assigned a global identity that's based on all of the interview information. So they could get one in religious areas and they could get one in vocational choice and political ideology, and then have an overall one. Does that make sense? I do also want to talk about the narrative, and I don't know if that's listed. I don't think that's listed here. Oh, yes, on your slide as one of the choices. And the narrative identity approach is where they have individuals tell stories about themselves and their life. So they'll give them an open-ended prompt, and then the person tells them a story. And these look at things like how in control of themselves they feel, what importance do they place on harmony with other people? And these can be used to assign identity statuses as well. And if they're used in a longitudinal study, they can also be used to look at how those things change over time. How does the content of those stories change over time? And some interesting information, I think, about identity results is that individuals who fall in the identity achievement category, remember that's the ones who have done the exploration and now have a commitment, they're more likely to see themselves as having control over events, or what psychology calls an internal locus of control. So they believe that they can affect what happens to them, that they have control. And then diffuse teens who excuse me, who have done no exploration and have no commitment are more likely to feel like that they have an external locus of control. So they feel like they have little control over what happens in their life, and that other external processes govern their lives. So whether that external process is their parents, teachers, maybe they have an unfair teacher that just failed them for no reason, just because they didn't do their work. And so they would believe that whatever happened to them was that, or, for some of them, it may be the cosmos or fate, but they don't believe that they can direct their own life. Youth who have the commitment part in place, whether they are identity achievement, or especially those in the state of foreclosure. I mean, they've already made all their decisions, whether they did any exploration, but they tend to be much less anxious than the other groups. And the group that has the most anxiety is not even surprising. It's the moratorium group, because they're still looking, even though they haven't made any commitments. So I also want to encourage you, if you have not, to look at that again on, I can't remember what page it was. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was 357 or 367, where they have the examples and the diagrams. So this is the end of part 3, and I hope that it's been helpful to you. Now, if I can just figure out how to stop it, sometimes it just kind of gets away from me here.